Everybody, welcome back to the Bird Rights Podcast. My name is Zach Lambert. I'm joined by Declan Pollard again, Jack
What's up?
Kobe, and Nick Miller.
Hello.
We're back. This is our fourth episode of NFL content, and this is our second preview and bet episode. Today we're going to be going over the divisional round. We're going to start off. We had a big day for the Ravens. We're going to start off with some Ravens stuff. John Harbaugh and Eric DeCosta, our GM, had a press conference today and kind of announced some things and kind of cemented what the future is going to look like coming up here in the offseason. But most importantly, we got what we asked for. Greg Roman is gone. So I'm going to start off with that, boys. Greg Roman is fucking gone. What are we thinking?
I wasn't here last episode when you guys did the big Greg Roman instant reaction hate episode because I could have been, but I was so just like quietly angry and depressed that I didn't even want to talk about it. But so much time has passed now, and I finally have the closure of him being gone. The evil man is gone. I'm ready to start looking towards the future, to the new OCs that we could bring in. And I'm hearing some names. Eric Bieniemy brought up again.
The
It seems
enemy
like
would be interesting.
he's brought up every single time there's an opening anywhere for any position, Eric Bieniemy. And the fact that he hasn't gotten a job yet kind of like weirds me out. It's like what is he doing in these interviews that he hasn't gotten a job yet after like his 50,000th interview?
I have a take on that quickly. I think probably what's going on is Andy Reid's old, and he's kind of been promised the job after Andy Reid is gone. And not that he wouldn't take another job, but he'd need to be paid handsomely. He'd need to be getting like top tier head coach money or coordinator money to go somewhere else because he already has that Chiefs promise.
And the role would have to be good. Like he wouldn't go to like the Texans if they paid him like the biggest contract.
Yeah. Chiefs OC is a good job right now, so he's going to need a really good offer to move.
Yeah, another really interesting name that I've heard is the Niners passing game coordinator, Bobby Slowick.
I've heard of that name as well.
I think that would be really interesting. I would be interested in that. I haven't done any research into it really. This is just really like first names out there. But as long as it's not an inside the house hire again, I will convince myself that it could work.
Nick, I was going to mention that guy coming into it because he's basically been with Kyle Shanahan his entire career, which I think we like to hear that. He started with the Redskins and then moved on to the Niners and has gone up from like a defensive like quality control coach all the way up to the passing game coordinator. So I think that he would bring a spark to this offense.
He is very young, and this was only his first year as the passing game coordinator.
Yeah, this will be a big jump for him.
So, but we'll see. Just a name.
Maybe he's not ready to do it yet.
Yeah.
I think Greg Roman is going to get another job somewhere, whether that's in college or the NFL. He's a good coordinator. I genuinely believe he's a good coordinator, but he has his time and place, as we discussed. I'm not going to go too far into that. A Greg Roman offense has a shelf life, and it overstayed its welcome in Baltimore for sure. But that does not mean it can't go be a startup somewhere else, and he can't really help a team. But it was definitely time to move on. And as far as names for a new offensive coordinator, another guy from the 49ers kind of tree of coaches, Brian Greasy's kind of been mentioned as a hot OC candidate, their quarterback coach right now.
Mm-hmm.
Frank Reich's kind of interesting. That'd be
I like that a lot.
That'd be a very safe hire. It'd be a safe hire. Yeah. I would be very okay with that. He runs a very solid, effective offense that he ran with Carson Wentz in Philly, and that he ran in Indianapolis.
Hopefully, whoever we hire is able to last more than like a year.
Yeah, that's my worry with Frank Reich. Reich.
He's just going to turn.
He's going to get a head coach. Yeah,
he's going to get a head coaching job after 1 year. Because if you give him a good offensive, that's kind of the problem with a lot of these guys. Because it's like
Kubiak.
Yeah, but if you give a good offensive mind, Lamar Jackson, they're gonna look awesome. That's what's gonna happen. Yeah. So and then another name was Brian Johnson, the Eagles quarterback coach. And if their offensive coordinator, Shane Steichen, is going to get a head coaching gig somewhere. So maybe Brian Johnson just steps up as their OC if Steichen gets a head coaching job somewhere. But Brian Johnson, if we see how that Jalen Hurts offense has been run, that's kind of the next logical step for how you kind of utilize a mobile quarterback, a really dynamic quarterback without, kind of having this, prehistoric offense at times because it was still dynamic. So those are the names that I like. Greasy, somebody from the 49ers tree I feel like is always a good idea. But Frank Reich feels like a Ravens kind of hire, a very safe, we know what it is, and he's an established guy.
Not to interrupt you, but T. Martin would be a Ravens kind of hire.
Yeah, T. Martin would be.
When was the last time we brought in someone from outside the organization? Was it Mark Trestman? From the Bears?
Yeah. But to be fair, we also brought in Greg Roman from outside the organization. He just was with us for a year. T. Martin, it'd be a similar thing with T. Martin, where T. Martin hasn't grown up with the Ravens or anything. T. Martin we hired him last year, and maybe we'd be promoting him now. That's a little different to me than, like Mike Mack, who was here for 7 years and went to Michigan, then came back, or, or even Marty Morningway, who was like a quarterback coach for 5 years here before we brought him back up. Because Marty had a long career before that, but we kind of revitalized it for him, which was probably a mistake. But besides,
a mistake.
Yeah, for Greg,
he's one of the worst. Martin Morningway was one of the worst head coaches of all time.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right.
For Greg, we hired him as Zach, you can go.
No, I was gonna say it's a very Ravens thing to do, to bring in guys within the organization. So I was gonna say T. Martin would be someone I've heard of, and then I've also seen some articles talking about our running back coach Craig Versteeg, and our running backs have been really good recently. And we also like Gus Edwards, we developed from a 7th round pick into a
undrafted
starter. He was undrafted, yeah.
Undrafted. J.K. Dobbins was a 2nd rounder. Obviously, he was like a 1st round talent, but still, we've been able to develop guys in our running back game, and it seems like everyone we've had has been somewhat efficient at one point with our team. So he could also be a possible guy. But I think T. Martin's definitely possibly a better choice, but he's also
I think the way Harbaugh was talking in the presser today, it sounded like he is acknowledging we kind of need to move the pass game. He was trying to be respectful to Greg Roman, and he was certainly respectful of his run concepts, and that's, and as he should be. But even John Harbaugh
he even said his pass concepts were excellent. So he was trying really hard to be respectful.
He said his pass concepts were excellent. He said the run stuff, and he's like, I probably shouldn't just not mention passing because that'd be a bad look. So then he said it, but you could tell.
To me, he fired him for a reason.
You could tell he's ready to move on and find.
It was a mutual parting of ways, actually, Jeff.
Yeah, I know. That means Greg
could tell.
Pursue more opportunities.
Yeah, great transition, by the way, into talking about the press conference. We covered a lot. It was a long press conference. I think it was 45 minutes. A lot of questions got cleared up. I think a lot of people are like, all right, this confirms that we're not gonna, trade Lamar, and it's like
doesn't confirm it, but
he said what nothing that they said was stuff that doesn't already make sense. That was their thinking. It's like obviously they don't want to trade Lamar. He didn't say we're not going to trade Lamar. He said I'm not talking about trading Lamar right now, which obviously the season just ended. They're going to try and work on a deal, right? But Harbaugh and him did sound like the best way to win is with Lamar. And, I'm glad they recognize that. It would be extremely concerning if they didn't recognize that. But it all comes back to, I don't think that, and Declan, you said this last time I was on, I don't think it's in their hands really. I think it's in Bisciotti's hands. I think it's all the guaranteed money in escrow. I don't think that he wants to commit that much. And,
billionaire always wins, I guess.
It's almost like a waiting game. It's like who's going to break first.
Yeah, I will say I think Bisciotti probably saw how Bisciotti's a good owner. He's genuinely a good owner, and he wants to see these guys win. He genuinely cares about winning, where other owners care about just money. And we've seen time and time again, Bisciotti clearly cares about winning. And I think he saw kind of how we've looked without Lamar, and hopefully that moved him a little bit. But I will say I wasn't, it was a lot of stuff we kind of expected to hear, but I was a little encouraged, more so than I wasn't, obviously they weren't going to say, yeah, we're trading Lamar, come get him. But um, but I think it was a little bit encouraging to hear the way they were talking about it. And I think the most encouraging thing was how open they were about it. It's like, yeah, Lamar's going to have serious input in this offensive coordinator search. And Lamar on Twitter seemed to be, he retweeted a bunch of things that were some of them. He's like, Greg Roman had his time and his place, but then he was like, Lamar's ready for something else. He's not so subtly retweeting RG3 and Ryan Clark and Dan Orlovsky, who are saying this is the right move for the Ravens. Lamar needs something else, and Lamar, tweeting as though he's still a part of this team and plans to be a part of this team. I think is encouraging, and I think he'll be here. And I've said this a while ago, and then it got he doesn't have an agent to back him in the media, so the media goes wild, and I got caught up in that in the past week. Where I'm like, we might lose him this year. I think I'm back to the point where I was a month ago, where I'm like, I'm 50-50 that he'll be here for long term. Maybe I'm a little more confident now. Maybe I'm 60% he'll be here long term. But I'm very confident at the bare minimum, he will be our quarterback in 2023. Because of the way the mechanics of the rights to him are, and if we use the regular tag or even the non-exclusive tag, if we use the non-exclusive tag, that could be interesting because then teams could negotiate, but then we'd have the opportunity to match. So, and I can't think of a scenario where we're like, we'd rather have 2 Jets first round picks than match whatever offer they're giving him. But I imagine we don't give him the non-exclusive tag. Maybe next year we do that, but I imagine this year we give him the exclusive tag and still try and work out a long-term deal with him.
Yep.
I agree.
Yeah,
So actually, go ahead, Zach.
I was gonna say I agree with that, but if we're still gonna talk about Lamar, then Nick, you can go because I was just gonna kind of talk about what else they talked about.
I was going to say one really interesting thing that DaCosta said was, and this might be like the most, I didn't even think about this, but it's true. He said, dealing with Lamar, who has no agent, it's difficult to, kind of hammer out the details because you don't want to insult him, right?
Yeah.
You want, and it's like, I never thought about that, but it's true. When you're dealing with players directly, it's in football players, especially quarterbacks, and Lamar not so much, but still, you got to have a lot of ego to play that position. So when you're like, especially from your team, it's like
you don't want to say to Lamar.
Yeah, but you have to say it. Like there's things that have to be said, and it's
you don't want to say to
Lamar,
agent. Yeah, you don't want to say to Lamar, you're not Patrick Mahomes. Like you don't want to say that to him, but you kind of have to. And like, I genuinely, there's other quarterbacks that are better than Lamar besides Patrick Mahomes. But Patrick Mahomes is the only guy who I'm like 100% certain is better would make the Ravens better.
Yeah, because I feel like Lamar's been hindered a lot by some of like they haven't gotten him good wide receivers, they haven't gotten him a good head coach or an offensive coordinator, and then we look at the other quarterbacks around the league that like Josh Allen getting a really well put together coaching staff and getting Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis and all these guys.
You even see Lamar. You see what Allen looks like without Daboll. He's throwing all these picks. I mean, Allen looks good still, but he's not the
Allen's
same player.
Good, but he hasn't been as good without Daboll. And look at Daniel Jones. He's been one of the best quarterbacks.
The Daboll effect has been very apparent on Allen and Daniel Jones. Very apparent.
Daniel Jones was always like a little decent, but this year I think he took kind of a big step.
Yeah.
All right.
But I mean, some of the other stuff that Harbaugh and DaCosta talked about, obviously like smaller things, but the EDC talked a lot about our future in the offseason with free agents and who we're going to go after in the draft. So I'm just gonna save some of this stuff. Yeah. All right. So John said that the tight end room and the O-line room isn't going to really change. Ben Powers is a big free agent, which I think is
he'll probably walk, and we'll replace him with Ben Cleveland.
Yeah, I think
Harbaugh even mentioned that. He was like, he's gonna have a very big free agent market.
Yeah, we're not gonna be able to afford Powers. Powers is a good player.
Yeah, we'll get a pick.
Started every game. He was beyond solid. Bradley Bozeman like.
Yeah, I feel like when we have a lot of good offensive linemen that are like not elite tier, we usually let them walk. Like
We
when
always
Ryan
we
Jensen
always
left
have
us, he wasn't elite tier, but he was good, and we let him walk.
Orlando,
we always
let
have
him
we
go.
always have a 3rd to 5th round interior lineman starting that's about to walk because we have another one waiting. It's always happening.
Colecchio, Semele, Ryan Jensen, like they just go down the line
Ricky
for
Wagner,
years. Oh
Ricky
my God.
Wagner, you know,
go forever.
James Hurst, you can go forever. Exactly. Alex Lewis. There's a million of them.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and
Matt Skura.
the other two things where the EDC said that he expects us to go after a corner in either free agency or the draft, which is something that I think we've talked about a little bit before. But
Yeah,
I
we
do
need
think that's a good
help.
move, is to go after and get some. So I don't know about as much as depth. I think we should try and get another starter because Marcus Peters might be out. Kyle Fuller's gone. And then it's really just Marlon and a bunch of depth pieces. So
Brandon
but
Stevens.
with the way the
Stevenson.
money works and how with how big Lamar's number is going to be, even if we get a new deal for him, it's still going to be a big number. You're going to have to start making concessions, and we're spending so much money in the secondary. We're going to have to patchwork the rest of the corners. You know, Stevens looked pretty good. Pepe looked okay. Armour Davis didn't look like anything because he was hurt all year. But, you know, he'll be a depth piece there. And, you know, we'll draft another guy, probably sign a veteran, and it'll be kind of, you know, patchwork similar. You know, the best case scenario patchwork is like what we did with Brandon Carr a while back, or something like, you know, different positions, but kind of how we signed Morgan Moses. And then drafted Faalele, right? We drafted a project right tackle, and we signed an older veteran who can be solid for a year. And that maybe we'll do something like that. I think corner's not the first priority, but it certainly is a priority.
And DaCosta is a smart guy. He saw this coming. He signed Fuller and he drafted 2 young guys relatively early last year because he knew Peters would be gone this year. And, you know, you can't build all of the depth and those guys leaving in one off season. So Pepe and Armour Davis are going to be depth pieces for us. I'm not super worried about the depth, but I agree with Zach. We need like one more guy. And I think it'll come in the form of an off-season, you know, veteran free agent. I think it'll be Marlon, you know, Brandon Carr-esque veteran
Stevens.
corner, and then Stevens, and then we'll have Pepe and Armour Davis as the 4-5. I think that's good. I think that's a solid room. So I think that we'll sign somebody. I don't know who's out there. I have no idea.
Yeah, I'm looking right now. There's some solid names out here. James Bradbury's a free agent.
That's too much. That's
too, maybe a little too rich.
Pat Pete's interesting.
Peterson's
be interested in Pat
Pete's interesting.
That would be good.
Eli Apple.
No.
People hate the name, but if he's cheap.
I don't want him in our locker room.
That's fair.
He had a poor year.
No, yeah, I'd say probably the most entertaining name and realistic is Pat Pete. Who's a vet and he actually had a really good season this past
year. He had one of his best seasons in a minute.
Yeah. All right.
But yeah, that's why you got to make sure that the draft by just best available as opposed to like dire need. Like the Ravens are one of the best franchises at that. Like just because you might look at good at one position, like things happen so fast in free agency and aging and all that stuff. You got to be loaded in at every spot.
And I'm sure we'll have plenty of time to talk about this now that the offseason for us has officially begun. But we're gonna take a wide receiver at 24. It's 24, right? We're taking a wide receiver at 24.
It's 22. 22.
I think it's 22.
22.
And it'll be in Jigba.
If we don't trade back.
It'll be in Jigba if we don't trade back, or maybe depends on who's there really. But Josh Jones. It feels like an Njigba would be kind of our pick. A safe Njigba's going to be somebody said he's between Hunter Renfrow and Amon-Ra St. Brown, and I'm like, yeah, that's kind of what he is. He'll be solid. We're taking a receiver in the first round, or if we trade back at the top of wherever our second round picks are, if we trade back, because we can't. People are daydreaming about D-Hop. Maybe I don't see.
I don't see it.
Yeah, I don't.
He's not the best fit at this point.
I think a name like an older or less, overwhelming name is a free agent name. I'm sure because Harbaugh said in the presser, we're really going to work that receiver room. And I think a high draft pick plus a guy like DJ Chark, maybe Marvin Jones, maybe.
Juju's probably the biggest name.
Juju's out there. Jacoby Myers is going to be too rich.
Myers would be good, but it's expensive.
But there's names of Mecole Hardman's out there. There's names of interesting-ish receivers that'll be, adding to the room that I'm sure we'll look into.
Yeah.
But I think we
well,
move on from Raven stuff.
Yeah, the biggest add to our rooms will be Bateman and Duvernay.
Yeah. Well, plus a first round pick.
Indeed. Yep. All right, let's move on.
Yeah, but I mean, moving on from some of the Ravens stuff, there's also some kind of news that's been going on in the NFL recently. I just wanted to start off with some of the Sean Payton stuff. So news has come out that he's obviously, Jim Harbaugh is going back to Michigan. So that's going to raise up a lot of his kind of price, and, a lot of more teams are going to be interested in him. But right now there's news that he's been leaning towards Denver as his choice of where he wants to go.
Yeah, me and Zach talked about this on the recap pod the other day when it was just the two of us. We thought Houston and Denver were the two main candidates, and we kind of were talking ourselves into Houston because of the flexibility, and he had no relationship with ownership, and he could choose his quarterback. But it really does sound like the momentum's pointing to Denver. Part of it is I think probably the market, because Denver, once you go kind of West Coast-ish teams, I know Denver's not the West Coast, but once you get past the East Coast teams, Denver's one of the few more popular teams. Dallas, Denver, and San Francisco are kind of the really marketable franchises out there, and I think that's kind of important to Sean Payton because he's working at TV now, and he's going to want to keep that up if he wants to work in TV afterwards. Cowherd did kind of a segment on that, and Cowherd doesn't make sense a lot of time, but that kind of made sense when he was talking about it. And Denver has all the pieces on defense, a lot of them at least. They've got some weapons at receiver that are solid, and they'll get Javonte back. Their O-line's questionable. Russell Wilson is very questionable, but it's of the openings, I kind of get it, and I think that's where he ends up, and they'll trade that pick they got for Bradley Chubb for Sean Payton. But I don't know, they don't have a lot of picks. Trade another pick for a coach is risky. It's kind of, I guess it's short-sighted to say you shouldn't do that, because if you get the right coach, it's going to be worth it. And I'm sure Sean Payton is the right coach, so I'm sure it's worth it trading whatever the 30th pick for him. But
Denver's also pretty desperate, honestly, at this point. They're stuck with Wilson.
They need direction.
With the defense.
I was going to say,
if they don't get a good head coach hire, they're going to be drowning.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
But yeah, that's on the head coaching front. And then we also wanted to talk a little bit about Aaron Rodgers stuff. I mean, not much has been moving, but he did go on Pat McAfee on Tuesday and talk about some of the Packers' future. And he kind of seemed more like he's leaning towards coming back and not retiring, which I feel like a lot of people thought. But I personally feel, as sort of a Packers fan, that his time in Green Bay is done. I think that they're the franchise's best, their best future and chances to win in the future should be starting Love now. He played a few times this past season, and he actually looked really solid when he was playing. So I think it's time to move on from Rodgers and try and move him to a team that needs a quarterback. Maybe have Rodgers for a year or two, and then draft a rookie on the last year with Rodgers and have him sit under him and be ready to go. But I think he's out of the door here, and I think he's going to go to a different franchise.
Everyone's talking about what Rodgers wants. I think you make a good point there. But what do the Packers want? They're not winning a Super Bowl next year with Aaron Rodgers. So I think at that point, what are you doing? It's time to see what you have in Jordan Love. I know they're going to have to, if they trade Rodgers, they're going to have to inherit a huge cap burden for next year. But I think it's worth it, because you're not winning the Super Bowl with him. Get whatever you can get back, maybe a high second round pick, or even maybe a first round pick from team. I don't know what Rodgers will net you, but you'll get some draft comp. You'll have to pay a big burden, but it'll be worth it to see what you got in Love. And see where you're going from here. And then I think Rodgers, people are saying, is he going to retire? He's not saying no to $60 million, guys. He's not retiring. He's taking the money, and he's at least playing one more year to get that money. He's not. Yeah, I mean, he's not saying
still
no.
Playing at a good level as well. So
no, Rodgers was a top 10 quarterback still. He was still good enough.
But he also did. He did make a note during that podcast. He was saying that if Green Bay is kind of moving towards a rebuild, that he does not want to be there. So
yeah,
I think he's made that clear with the front office. And then obviously I think it's also, like you said, in the Packers' best interest to not invested more older guys
Yeah.
and vets.
What are you
Try
gonna
and
do? Go
win
10-7? Yeah, go 10-7 and lose in the divisional at best. Like
Yeah,
I just go
yeah.
see what you have in Jordan Love and work out the rest. Work with the Falcons had to work with that big Matt Ryan cap hit. You can make it work for a year. And then
Mhm.
that way, if you do that, you can have Jordan Love's 5th-year option and have the books clear and actually kind of turn this thing around and make a contender out of it. But yeah, that's all I have to say on Rodgers.
Anybody else have any thoughts?
All right. If not, we can go into recapping our bets from last week and then into our preview for divisional round. Actually, a pretty good start for our bets.
It was.
The lock of the week from all of us was Jacksonville plus 2.5. Got a little nervous there for part of that
Bang.
game.
You were nervous?
What are you talking about?
Never a
You
doubt.
were
Never a doubt.
nervous?
Yeah, no, of course not. I was lying for suspense.
I was nervous about the Richie James.
Yeah, nerd. Richie James under did hit under 50.5 yards. That also
Never.
hit.
It hit.
Unfortunately, the 3-team teaser was not able to hit because Buffalo teased down to -6.5. Somehow didn't beat Skylar Thompson by a touchdown.
Yeah.
That was unfortunate.
Unbelievable.
And then, yeah, it's unbelievable.
Horrible effort.
Painful, but we're still making money on the day with the 2 locks hitting.
Yeah.
And then our against the spread picks. The best on the week was Nick Miller going 5-1 with his only miss being picking Buffalo to cover 13.5. I went 4-1-1 with my misses being having Tampa covering against Dallas and my tie being I refused to bet the Bills Dolphins game because I was like, that's too many points, but also I'm not betting on Skylar Thompson. So that was my no contest there. And then Kovahay went 4-2 and Zach went 3-3. So all of us at least even. You're making money if you're betting with us right now. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
If you're taking our picks, you're making money.
Trust the bird rights boys.
We have never had a negative week. None of us have ever had an under 500 week on this podcast. So
we know ball.
Yeah, we know ball, and we'll give our picks later.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we can move into the divisional preview if you want to take that away, Zach.
Yeah. So kind of like last week, the wild card preview, just gonna go over each game, give our thoughts. So first off, we got Jags Chiefs. The spread is -8.5 for the Chiefs. They're the favorite, obviously, at home. I personally think this is going to be a Chiefs blowout. I think the Jags had a really rough first half and then kind of came around. And Doug Peterson had a great coaching performance. I just don't think he's going to do that again against Andy Reid and Mahomes and all those guys. I just think that team is too good. So much playoff experience already, and I also think that I think that on Kansas City's defense, I think the Jags offense has been really good recently. I think a guy like Chris Jones could really tear up this run game and pressure Trevor Lawrence because he has had one of the better defensive seasons in recent memory for a defensive tackle this year.
I guess I'll talk. Yeah, I mean, I agree with Zach wholeheartedly. I picked the Jags last week, and I'm taking the Chiefs this week to cover. I don't want to say that the Jags got lucky last week because they got lot of
they got lucky.
but early in the game, there were some very unlucky things that happened.
Fair, that's fair, right? Yeah.
But they're going to regress to the mean, let's call it, in this game, and the Chiefs are going to walk straight through them. They're going to walk. It's going to be. I'm not sure it's going to be like a embarrassing blowout, but it's going to be a very Andy Reid's writing up the game plan right now. If you watch that game on his week off, and he's watch what the Jags did, and he's formulating the game plan, and they're just going to have a very safe, 20-point win.
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree as well. Like, I'm in the same boat as Nick. I took the Jags to win last week, and I'm going to take the Chiefs to win this time. Like, there's just so much experience in that locker room. Like, Mahomes has already done so much in such a short time, and Andy Reid, like, there's basically always won with no matter who he sends out there. Like, they lost Tyreek Hill, and they missed him, of course, but their offense still looks extremely elite because they have Mahomes and Andy and Kelsey and all them. And the Jags had a pretty crazy week, like one of the more absurd weeks that you could ever imagine. I mean, the first half, I'd never seen a team look that bad before, and I feel like the the Chargers could have even almost gone up by more points than they did. Like I think that the Chiefs don't have to only go up by 27 if the Jags are fucking up that hard. Like I think they're going to just capitalize on all the mistakes a little bit better, just execute, and yeah, they're going to cover, I think.
I'm picking the Chiefs to win, obviously. However, I think the Jaguars cover 8.5. I think it's a touchdown game. They played earlier in the season, it was the last game before Jacksonville went on their big win streak, and right then Jacksonville was a worse team. They didn't have their legs under them, and they lost 17-27. And I think they can improve upon that performance and cover this week and make it a competitive game. I think it might be one of those games that it feels competitive, and then there's a late third quarter or early fourth quarter drive. The Chiefs kind of put it away, but I think Jacksonville could bring it back and then lose anyway. That kind of a game, and Jacksonville took the second half there. I certainly don't think Trevor Lawrence is going to have the terrible first half he had against the Chargers. If he does, yeah, they're not covering. But the Chiefs defense, the back end of the Chiefs defense has been porous all year. They've struggled against good passing offenses, and Jacksonville has absolutely been a good passing offense. And I think they'll be able to put up points on Kansas City. I think Kansas City's gonna be able to put up more points on the Jacksonville defense, which hasn't been a world beater by any estimation. But I'd say around Chiefs 31, Jaguars 24, 27, something like that, where they're making it a competitive game. Putting up enough points, and I think, yeah, I could see a backdoor cover. There's a way that happens, but I definitely would take the points in this one with Jacksonville, but pick the Chiefs to advance.
Yeah, I think it could be a close game. Definitely, I think. I just personally, for me, I think the Chiefs.
I will say my one worry with it for it not being as close is I do think Doug Peterson is going to play like he is playing with house money at this point, play super aggressive. And that might be a path for them. I actually think that's how they're going to play, and that's their path to really being in this game. But that's also a path, if it doesn't work out early, to kind of a quick blowout. So I think if this is a game in the mid-second quarter, then I'll feel really good about Jacksonville covering. And even giving everyone a scare, thinking maybe they can win it. But that Jags defense is so porous. If it's a one-score game with any more than 25 seconds left and the Chiefs have a timeout, I'm very confident that they will be able to get down the field and kick a game-winning field goal or do whatever they have to do against that Jags defense. But yeah, I think that offense can put up a fight. I think Trevor Lawrence is here. He's arrived, and I think it'll be a good game.
Yeah.
I agree with all that.
Oh, what were you gonna say, Nick?
I agree. I just think that Andy Reid off the bye, I don't expect any surprises.
Yeah.
So
just a lot of experience on that roster that the Jags don't really have. Moving on from the Jags Chiefs, our next game that we're gonna talk about is Giants Eagles. Spreads -7.5. Eagles the favorite. Personally, I'm going to take the Eagles, and I think that they are going to cover as well. This could be a low scoring, kind of divisional playoff matchup. With Daniel Jones and Saquon keeping the ball on the ground and chewing up clock and owning time of possession. I personally don't really. I just think the Eagles roster is so good. Dable's been a great coach, and Daniel Jones played great last weekend. But I just think that this Eagles roster, top to bottom, is almost, I wouldn't say perfect, but they have a really good group at every single position. And I also think their game plan, I think the Giants defense with their linebackers and like Jalen Smith, and I think that the Eagles could run read option and stuff with that, and play action and RPOs, and kind of take advantage of the low quality linebacker play. And, I just think that this Eagles team is too good and they're just going to outclass the Giants here.
Yeah, no, I would. Oh,
Kobe, you can go. You go ahead.
Sure. Yeah, I was gonna agree with Zach. I think that the Eagles will win and that they will be able to cover. I mean, the Giants they put up a good fight last week. I predicted them to win, which was a bit of a surprise to some people, but I think they're pretty good too. Like they would beat a lot of teams, but the Eagles are just the class of the NFC, in my opinion. Maybe them and the Niners are starting to separate themselves a little bit, but I just don't really see how the Giants are able to like really expose them on prime time. Like Jalen Hurts is good all season. They're just basically better than the Giants on paper, at least like every single position, which is kind of hard to beat when it comes down to it. And it is a bit of a bigger spread. Like that's why it's a little risky to hammer Eagles on this one. But I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go with Eagles to win this one and to cover by a little bit as well.
All right, Nick, you should go ahead because I think I'm gonna have a different pick than you guys.
This is a tough one. This is a tough one for me. I'm getting like flashbacks to my incorrect pick last week with the Bills. The Eagles should win this game by more than 7.5 points.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if they will. And I'm a pretty big Eagles fan. Jalen Hurts led me to the fantasy ship this year. But I just have a bad feeling. I don't know. I feel like, with that wink aggressive defense, they could just keep lofting it up to AJ Brown and Devontae Smith, and the Eagles could destroy him. Or, they could just kind of keep him in this close game. That's what Wink did a lot with us, was he just kept us in close games.
Yeah, we always had a chance.
So I'm undecided. So I think, Declan, you should go, and then I'll give my pick.
All right. I'm, again, like I said last time, I'm taking the Eagles to win, but the Giants to cover. I think if there is, the Eagles roster certainly is incredibly talented. They have great guys in a lot of these position groups. They have a lot of great players in the front seven, but their run defense hasn't been since Jordan Davis got hurt. Now Jordan Davis is back, but he's been a little different since he got back. He hasn't quite been the same. And he's not playing every snap anyway. They have been struggling to stop the run all year. And I think the Giants are going to try and play smash mouth football. They're not going to be worried about how many carries they give Daniel Jones. They'll run him till the ground if they need to. It's the playoffs. And Saquon's going to get 100 touches. And I think they can keep it close in a low scoring game. And another thing, Jalen Hurts was not right week 18. And that shoulder injury is really concerning because it's his throwing shoulder, which is, I'm not too worried about the throwing. It's the Eagles have been, revolutionarily good at the QB sneak this year. But I don't know how comfortable you are on those 4th and 1s, those 3rd and 1s, getting in that rugby scrum with Jalen Hurts, that how powerful he is with that bum shoulder right now, much less, running QB power with him and running zone reads with him. I think Jalen Hurts, I think he'll be fine throwing the ball. I think he'll run the ball when he has to, but I don't know that he's going to be comfortable getting as many carries as he has been in the past for this earlier in the year. And I think they have enough talent to win. Certainly, they're certainly much more talented than the Giants. But the Giants are well coached. They have a great run game. Daniel Jones can add to that run game. Even their receivers are not big names, but they're playing fine. They're playing solid. I think it's a lower scoring game. I think Philly, 21, 24 points. I think the Giants can get to 14, 17. I think the Giants cover. I wouldn't take, this is my least confident bet of the set of picks. If it was 6.5, I'd feel very uncomfortable betting it, but at 7.5, I'll take the Giants in the points.
All good points. We'll see how Hurts looks after a week of rest with that bye, but And also, it being the playoffs, they might not have as many reservations about running the power with Hurts.
Yeah.
But I think I disagree that it's going to be a low-scoring game, but I think you convinced me. I think I'll take the Eagles to win, but the Giants to cover.
Yeah.
I can see that happening as well.
Yeah, I'm not
Moving on from this game, we got our next game, Bengals Bills.
Probably the game of the week.
-5.5 is the spread for the Bills. Personally, after seeing how the Bengals played last weekend against the Ravens and Tyler Huntley, I think that the Bills, they also played a little bit shaky against Skylar Thompson and the Dolphins, but I do trust Josh Allen. I trust Sean McDermott, and obviously you trust Joe Burrow as well. But that offensive line it's really, really, really bad. And for the Bengals,
Now even more banged up now, even more.
Oh yeah, with Jonah Williams
after
out,
us.
it's I feel bad for Joe Burrow. It's really bad. And with that being how it is for them on the offensive line, Joe Mixon hasn't looked like himself recently. And they've had to kind of limit the explosive plays on their offense more. And it's been more like shorter, more like safe stuff, which is what they did against the Ravens. There was no big plays.
They don't have the time to get off a big deep shot.
No.
Yeah, it's just.
And the run game was totally neutralized. He was averaging like 2 yards per carry or something.
Yeah, Mixon has been bad all year except for one game. Except for one game where he had 5 touchdowns. He was, I had him in fantasy. He was bad all year. Go ahead, Nick.
I was gonna say it's the combination of their O-line hurt and teams have realized they have to play 2 high safeties against them constantly, play cover 2 or cover 6 or cover 4. And you mostly just cover 2, Tampa 2 kind of stuff, or 2-man under. But they're with having those deep safeties, you're not going to get a deep shot off anyway. And with their O-line so hurt, teams are rushing. Like the Ravens were rushing 4 and getting home with Odafe Oweh. Odafe had a great game, but partially because of the lack of healthy starting caliber offensive linemen that they have. That said, Joe Burrow, will make the right decisions. He'll take the plus gains. He's been so good this year at taking the positive plays when he can. Even if it's 8 yards, 9 yards, 7 yards, he'll take it, and I think that'll keep him in the game. But Zach, you can get back to where you were saying.
Yeah, I think that this Bills defense has been really solid. They have a lot of good rotational pass rushers, and then obviously Tremaine Edmonds at the linebacker position and Matt Milano have both been great. Jordan Poyer's awesome. Tre'Davious White's hasn't been himself, or hasn't been as good as he used to be, but Kyrie Elam, you hope he can play this week, and he was really good against the.
It's kind of similar defense to Baltimore's personnel wise. You get the 2 linebackers and Edmonds and Milano, kind of similar to Queen and Roquan. Mm-hmm. They have the 1 shutdown corner in Humphrey, and then Tre'Davious White, and then they have the young corner on the other side. Peters isn't young, and he's older, and compared to Kyrie Elam. I think Elam might be better at this point. And the elite safeties, similar personnel defenses, and kind of a lot of rotational pass rushers. It'll be a similar kind of personnel challenge, but I think Buffalo hasn't been performing quite at the level of the Ravens defense over these past month or so. So it'll be a little bit easier for them to move the ball, I think, at least.
Yeah. I also think that the Bills on offense, I think they had a few turnovers last weekend. I think they can minimize those a little bit, and I think Josh Allen could definitely be a little bit smarter with the ball, and I think he can be this week, especially against a defense with Eli Apple as their number 1 corner. Demarcus Robinson burnt this dude, and I cannot imagine the crimes that Stephon Diggs do. Like, he's just absolutely going to tear this man apart. So, pray for Eli Apple, but also don't, because we don't mess with Eli Apple on this podcast.
No. You're taking the Bills then?
I am taking the Bills, and I'm going to take them to cover. Yeah.
All
right. I'm also taking the Bills to cover. We talked about last week how all 3 of us had the Bills winning it all, and I think that'll just continue. They looked a little shaky though. Like I thought for sure they would really run home with it last week, but they kind of were trying to give the game away for a bit there.
Mm-hmm.
I think they missed Dable on offense, and that's part of why the Giants are. That's mainly like the big reason why the Giants are as far as they are. But I think that they will beat the Bengals and cover. It's going to be a close game though, because both teams have explosive pieces that are going to be able to make plays when the time counts. But I just think the Bills have more. Like I think that Allen's better than Burrow, and he just has a better roster around him, especially with the injuries to the Bengals offensive line, and then the Eli Apple situation. Like I think the Bills are better equipped to guard some of the best receivers that the Bengals have. But yeah, I'm going to take the Bills to cover, but it should be the game of the week, definitely.
Yeah. You guys, Nick, you can go.
All right, I was going to say, I don't think this is the case, but one could make an argument that the reason the Bills and Bengals performed so poorly is because they were looking forward to this week. They were kind of looking past the two teams with backup QBs. I don't think that's what happened.
It's human nature. I think it's some of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I just don't think the Bengals would look past us.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Maybe the Bills look past Skylar Thompson.
They're both division
like
rivals, so it's kind of like
I don't see that. But a certified Nick Wright stat for you here, Declan. Josh Allen had the most interceptions plus fumbles of any player in the league this year.
I mentioned that on a pod 2 days ago.
Did you?
Yeah.
Great stat. Stat. The Dable effect has, as I've said on this podcast already, has been very apparent. That being said, I am going to take the Bills in this game to cover. Man, can you imagine if Von Miller was healthy
my God.
going against the Cincinnati Bengals? I hesitate
Jackson Carman. Jackson Carman.
The tackles of the
they have
Bengals.
they have like the worst tackle duo I've ever
seen. They gotta bring back Riley Reef.
It would be a Super Bowl 50 level performance for Von Miller. I mean, it would be absurd what he would do to them. They don't need him.
He was out there.
I don't think they're going to need him. I think that Burrow is going to get sacked 6 times, and I think the Bills. I think it will be a very good game. I do, but I think the Bills pull away late. I think they get a late score that pulls them away and ends up covering. Yeah, they win by 10 points.
I could see a 3-point game with a strip sack that leads to a touchdown with 5 minutes left, kind of thing.
Exactly.
Burrow's blindside gets hit.
I think you guys talked me into it. I was gonna take Bengals with the points, but the whole time I'm sitting here, I'm like, their O-line is really concerning. Their defense is just okay. The Ravens ran all over them. Huntley ran all over them. So, Josh Allen's certainly going to run all over them. Not that they don't really have, the running. I feel like sometimes, especially with Dable gone now, it feels like the Bills kind of just run the ball because they feel like they're supposed to. They're like, I guess
absolutely.
They're like we've thrown 4 times.
The quarterly what's his name? James Cook. Halfback dive up the middle.
Yeah, they're like
to do it.
They don't. There's no purpose behind it. They're like, we've thrown the ball 5 times in a row. I guess it's time to run the ball. But I don't think it's going to matter too much because Josh Allen, is just going to. Josh Allen will run through them and he'll be picking apart their kind of weak corners. Even though Jesse Bates is playing well, they have safeties and stuff. But Josh Allen scares me with the turnovers. He's not gonna, Josh Allen keeps everybody in every game, I guess is the way to put it. He keeps the Bills in every game because of how explosive he is. He keeps it was a 1-score game with the Bears until the 4th quarter of when they played him because he's turning the ball over. He really is the modern Brett Favre, and that's a compliment. Brett Favre was great. It's also a little bit of a backhanded compliment because Brett Favre was great but had a big limitation. Josh Allen's great but is going to turn the ball over. That's just kind of how he is.
As bad as the Bills looked against the Dolphins, I thought, and I think everyone would agree. I don't think they should have lost that game.
No.
But I actually think the Bengals should have lost that game.
Yeah.
That's the difference there.
Very good point.
I think the Bills O-line is solid enough. It's not great, but certainly better than Cincinnati's. And Yeah, I think I'll take the Bills to win at home. That's a big deal. The Bills Mafia is going to be going crazy. Who knows if, DeMar Hamlin walks out or something like that. That would be,
I think he
especially
does.
against Cincinnati, that would be a special thing that really kind of pushes them emotionally. That's kind of a thing you can't calculate. You can't kind of think of how much that'll affect his team.
Imagine losing after that. That would
that'd be brutal. I'm gonna you guys swayed me. I'm gonna take the Bills to cover the 5.5, win by a touchdown about. I think Allen will cut down on the turnovers a good enough amount. He'll have one. I'm sure, but he won't have 2 picks and 2 fumbles like he had last week. I don't think. And I think Buffalo will pull it out. And I guess because I think we can call that our lock of the week. Bills minus 5.5. We all agree on that one. So
yeah,
sure. You can lock that in. That's our lock of the week.
Yeah,
and I'm taking.
It's a hot one.
That is a hot one. I don't feel nearly as good as I felt about our lock last week, which was the Jaguars, which obviously was never. The Jaguars were always going to cover that.
It was never in doubt, really.
No, yeah, we knew at the beginning of the game until the end. Yeah.
Yeah, but I'll go with the Bills.
They were giving you an opportunity to make more money by live betting them.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what they were doing.
Yeah, exactly. Which I did. I put the house on that. Now I have 5 houses.
We told you, take out a loan and put it on them. We told you.
One more thought on the Bills. We were kind of down talking Gabe Davis, and rightfully so. He was mid all year. He's kind of a mid wide receiver too. He's fine. Playoff Gabe Davis is a real thing.
Yeah.
Playoff Gabe Davis is showing up big time last year and last week. So if playoff Gabe Davis is suddenly you have Gabe Davis, whatever.
Yeah.
Suddenly you have 2 wide receiver ones because playoff Gabe Davis, it's gonna be tough for.
We talked about Diggs on Eli Apple.
Yeah.
It's Gabe Davis on who?
I don't know.
I'm looking at it right now. Cam Taylor Britt is their second.
Cam Taylor Britt, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Because of Woozy's hurt. That's a big injury.
Oh yeah, he was great for them. He was actually like one of their only really good.
That's one of the people.
Players.
I think it's the way people talk about the NFL, at least on television. It's a real shame because we don't, unless it's a quarterback getting hurt or
injuries don't matter.
Yeah, unless it's a quarterback getting hurt or it's like the whole team. Like people talked about it with the Ravens last year because it was every fucking buddy.
Or like a star wide receiver.
Or a star, or like Von Miller, a star, but star corners are important. But like Awuzie just isn't a huge name. Like if Humphrey had gotten hurt for the Ravens, nobody would have said anything, right? If the Bengals people are kind of talking about the offensive line, but they're still talking about Joe Burrow. I'm like, guys, he's nobody in front of him. Like it's because the Bengals offensive line started the year really bad, but then because there was so many new guys, they kind of found their rhythm. And then as soon as they the Bengals look like they have a top half of the league offensive line for pass protection now. Then Collins goes down.
They won like 8 games in a row.
Yeah, then Collins goes down, then Kappa goes down, then Jonah Williams goes down, and now you're sitting here like it's Ted Karras and who? And
they started like 4-4, and then the offensive line was a big part of that stretch.
I think Ed Oliver is going to have a monster game up the middle. I think Greg Rousseau is going to have his impact felt.
Epinesa.
Can we add Joe Mixon under rushing yards to the parlay?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Right, I don't know. I have no idea what the line is.
We'll add it to the props. All right, we'll go to the last game, and we'll get to that in a second. All right.
Yeah, but moving on from this Bengals Bills game, we got our last game here that we're gonna cover, which is Cowboys 49ers. The spread's -3.5 for the 49ers, for the favorites at home. I'm actually going to go against the 49ers again. I'm doubting on the 49ers.
He's a Purdy hater.
What?
He's a hater. He's a Purdy.
I'm a hater. Yeah, I'm a 49ers hater. After what I saw from the Cowboys against the Bucks, that team offensively looked like they were clicking perfectly and they're doing it at the right time. That defense also has a ton of stars and talent on it with Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence, Trayvon Diggs. They have a lot of talent on this roster, and so does the San Francisco 49ers as well, obviously. But I think for a long, long time, people have always been picking like and saying preseason this is the Cowboys' year. This is the year they're finally going to start winning some playoff games, and
That's
it never
every year.
happens. But I can definitely see a situation where it starts to happen this year because this roster is really talented, and we saw last week against the Bucks, they finally look like they're actually putting it together in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think the Cowboys cannot afford to start as slow as they did against the Bucks. Like we saw how ugly that like first quarter roughly was. Like the first few drives, just no one could do anything. And I think the Niners aren't going to get stopped that many times on offense if the Cowboys can't immediately get up to speed on that side of the ball. But I mean, I think it'll be pretty close. I do think that's why the line is not, in San Francisco's favor by a wide margin. But I think they will find a way to cover in this one. Like I just think that they're just better. I mean, Purdy is young and experienced, and there was a bit of maybe nerves last week, and maybe also a little bit of rain that could have caused some inaccuracies. But I just see him having a nice game this week. I think that he's gonna make it work, and I just think they're gonna pound the rock a little bit, get that going. They can find a way to win this one.
I agree. Purdy, you're right. Purdy didn't look good last week. He had some
the numbers are
bad
good, but he didn't
throws.
look great.
He had some bad throws. And I don't necessarily want to attribute to the rain because it didn't look like it affected Gino at all. And it didn't look that wet out there. It looked like it had cleared up.
After the first quarter, it was clear. It wasn't
Yeah,
raining
it
here at all.
cleared up, and he
I
did
live
better.
I live 5 minutes from the stadium. It was drizzling at worst for the first quarter, and then it got, maybe it was pregame, it was really coming down, but during the game, it was drizzling, and then it really cleared up after like the middle of the second quarter.
Yeah, and both teams had a pretty it started out interesting for them, let's say, but then they both like safely ended up winning the game. I'm going to take the Cowboys. I'm going to take the Cowboys in the points. I wouldn't be surprised if the Niners win in a field goal, close game. But I'm going to take the Cowboys in the points, and I do think the Cowboys pull off the upset. I think Trayvon Diggs is going to have a pick against Purdy. I think Purdy's going to mess up, and I think that Michael Parsons is going to be all over the rookie, 7th round QB.
Micah Parsons versus Trent Williams is wildly intriguing to me.
One of the best matchups of the year.
Really good matchup. I'm excited. Micah Parsons had such a good game last week. He was everywhere, and I was worried because I looked like he got hurt.
Seems like.
But I think he's okay though. Yeah, I think
he's fine.
Yeah. Plus, even if he's a little banged up, it's
it's the playoffs. Everyone is.
Yeah. Exactly. So yeah, I'm gonna take the Cowboys. I'm almost surprised that I feel the way I do, but I'm going to take the Cowboys in this game.
I am incredibly excited for this game. Me and Zach talked about on the recap pod how impressed we were with Dak Prescott. Like we said, I think that was the best game of Dak Prescott's career, or at least one of them. And as far as in these big moments, it certainly was the best, must-win playoff kind of atmosphere game of his career. And I think it's a super tough pick for me. That half a point makes it super challenging at 3.5. If it was -3, I'd feel comfortable picking the Niners. I think the Niners are going to win. I think the talent is just too overwhelming, and I think Shanahan's going to have something. I think another thing people are underrating a little bit is the Niners have 2 full more days of rest than Dallas. Dallas
they were very upset about that.
Yeah, a Monday night game into a game against the Niners on Sunday when the Niners played on Saturday. I think they're going to run the ball well. I think Dallas will move the ball on this really good defense, though. I certainly think Gino was able to do it. I think Dak and that offense will be able to do it. But Dallas, they They started even last week when they played so well, they started slow. And I just don't think they can afford to do that against the Niners. They can't afford to have any lulls because that Dallas defense is strong, but that Niners offense has so much everywhere, and they're gonna, Shanahan's gonna get the pocket moving away from Parsons. Purdy's not gonna have to make any, crazy decisions. It's all gonna be, kind of shot put for him. Just get on schedule, on time, stay on schedule, and then every once in a while you can improvise. Last week when he improvised, he had one great throw to Ayuk that was dropped, and then he had two. One was almost a pick. One was him, running in circles and almost getting a strip sack. He looked a little Manzelli out there when he was scrambling around at
I'm still
times.
so sad that Ayuk
Oh
pass
man,
got dropped.
you called your boy Johnny Manziel?
No, but he's
Oh
obviously
man.
he's staying on schedule and he'll do fine. He is if Kyle Shanahan's like, give me a quarterback that'll, if it's like Kyle Shanahan was playing quarterback, if he had the talent to, he's going exactly where Shanahan wants the ball to go. And I think I'll take the Niners to cover that 3.5, but I think it's going to be an excellent game. I wouldn't be shocked at all if the Cowboys won. It's a super tough game for sure. I think both of these teams are plenty capable, roster-wise, for sure, capable of winning the Super Bowl. But I think with the spread this close, the Niners at home, give me Kyle Shanahan over Mike McCarthy. I think that's probably the biggest piece of it. And 3.5, I think I'll swallow the points and go Niners to cover 3.5. All right. And then that's our last game to cover. So now we can move on to our bets of the week. We gave our lock, which was Bills to cover -5.5 against the Bengals. We have 2 prop bets, 3 now because we thought about one in the middle of the pod, but 3 prop bets. The first 2 are 2 TD scores in the Dallas Niners game. We have Kittle anytime touchdown at +150. Kittle's been on an absolute heater. I'm surprised that's at +150. I'm really surprised that's at a heavy plus odds there.
Yeah, he's been crazy
given how many touchdowns he scored recently and how much Brock Purdy likes throwing to him. And then CeeDee Lamb anytime touchdown score at +155. I feel fairly confident that at least one of those will hit. And if you bet both of them, and one of them hits, you're still making money. So that would be my game plan. Bet both of them. Free money is what I'm telling you right there. Guarantee one of those is hidden. And then prop 3, under 48.5 rushing yards for Joe Mixon at -114.
We talked about that during the recap.
Yep, we talked about it. So, you have to take the 10% hit that the sports books take you in for. But I think we all agreed that Bengals interior offensive line is so banged up.
I also think game script isn't going to allow.
Yeah, they're not going to be running the ball very much, I don't think. Side note, you might want to bet Mixon over on receiving yards with checkdowns. But rushing yards, I definitely feel comfortable. And then our parlay for the week, we all agree there's going to be a lot of throwing in that Chiefs-Jaguars game. So we're doing a Jaguars 3-leg parlay here on the passing totals. We're getting Trevor Lawrence alternate passing yards, 200 yards. Take the over on that. That's at like -170. Christian Kirk over 60 receiving yards. That's at like -160, something like that. Those are both alternate lines. And then we're taking Christian Kirk anytime touchdown. Those 3 played together, you can get on FanDuel at +300. I think the Jaguars are going to be trailing and throwing the ball a lot. There will be a lot of targets for all of the receivers in the Jacksonville offense and Christian Kirk especially. So I think, you could see a 40-45 attempt passing game for Lawrence. Especially if it's a big blowout like some of these guys expect, then you'll see a ton of passing attempts, in which case you feel really good about Lawrence hitting 200 and Kirk hitting 60, and then you just got to get him in the end zone. And that's our bets for the day. And I think we're going to wrap it up with the question of the day from Nick Miller, and then we'll head out.
Third annual.
We're eager.
All right.
Let's hear it.
Pulling out the notes page.
The total right now is Zach has 1, Declan has 1, Kobe has 1, and then Brad, Wilhelm, and Stans all have 0.
Me and Zach have 2 from the pod.
Oh,
you're
right.
Yeah.
I was not there. Both of you guys have 2. Let me update that real quick. Slightly unfair considering you 2 are the only ones on, but who really cares? All right, gentlemen. This is a multiple choice.
Get your numbers up.
Who is the youngest ever? And make sure to write this down so that you can follow it up. Who is the youngest ever player inducted in the Hall of Fame? Is it A, Gale Sayers, B, Barry Sanders, C, Calvin Johnson, or D, Jim Brown? Interesting that 3 of them are running back because they usually don't have long careers.
So like the youngest when they were inducted?
When they were inducted.
I got you.
All right. Are you ready?
Yes.
Zach, Declan, you guys ready?
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Who wants to go first?
Declan looks confident. Let's go with him.
I'm not confident. My first instinct was Megatron because he was young, but him and Sanders were close. I wouldn't know. But the one I'm not sure about the age is Gale Sayers.
I don't know.
So I'm gonna go with Gale Sayers because I
Fair
feel
enough.
like that's the one I'm unsure of the most, and the other guys are all too close. So I'm gonna go with Gale Sayers.
Okay.
All right, Zach.
Like Declan said, I don't really know the age of Gale Sayers, so I'm not going to take him. I'm going to do the opposite of what Declan did. I remember like Calvin Johnson retired really young, so I went with him, and he was also obviously first ballot, so it didn't take long for him to get back in. So I think Calvin Johnson's my pick.
All right,
and I did not go with either of those 2 players. I went with Jim Brown actually. I think that it's possible that they maybe could have had a lesser.
If it's
waiting
Barry
time
Sanders,
back then.
we'd be really annoyed right now.
I think it's possible that maybe the waiting time was less back then. I know Jim kind of went in pretty quickly.
Yeah, Jim Brown famously only played 8 seasons.
Yes,
and went on to an acting career. All right, the answer is Gale Sayers.
Let's go.
He was inducted into the Hall of Fame at age 34.
Wow.
Yeah. Jim Brown was 35, so he was right behind him. Calvin Johnson was 37, and Barry Sanders was 36.
Yeah.
I thought I could have sworn Barry was older than Megatron was, but
I know Sayers had an injury that could have been. He might have had to retire really young.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Declan got it right.
We'll take the dub
to 3-0. I'm at 2-1, and Kobe's at 1-1.
We're not tracking the losses, just 3.
Yeah.
All right.
But that about wraps it up for us here. This was our 4th episode of Football and the Bird Rights podcast. Again, I'm Zach Lambert, joined by Nick Miller, Declan Pollard, and Jack Kobe. And thanks for listening.
We'll see y'all after the games for the recaps.
See you next Tuesday.
Peace out.
Peace.